Tickets for tonight.
Oh, do you for the
I kind
gift?
of wanted to go to the 4 o'clock one, but of course you.
Had our meeting.
Doc, you ready? Are you going to take the job in San Bernardino that was announced today?
San
They're looking for
Bernardino.
somebody.
Yep, you got a minute.
Oh, because we're not on air yet.
That's it.
Good afternoon, everyone, and we are going to call this meeting of the Measure J Commission to order. It is June 20th, 2019. And Ariana, I'll have you do roll call, please.
Commissioner Bernstein?
Here.
Commissioner Bixson? Here. Vice Chair Craig?
Here.
Chair Gazan?
Here.
Commissioner Gray?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson?
Here.
Commissioner Lass?
Here.
Commissioner Robin?
Here.
Commissioner Soto?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great, if we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. All Okay, do we have a motion to accept today's agenda?
I will move to accept the
Okay.
agenda.
A sec, great. All in favor? We don't have minutes to approve, so we'll move on to public comment. I don't see anyone in the audience, so I'm gonna save 30 seconds and move on. All right, welcome, everyone. We have two commissioners who are leaving us today, and we want to thank
No dancing.
Commissioner Bixson and Commissioner Johnson for their service, and I certainly personally appreciate all your guidance this past year, being the chair, and we will miss both of you in your service, and we hope that we'll get our replacements too by the end of the summer, hopefully. We'll be on schedule this year with interviews. That's all that I really have, so we'll move right into the city manager's report, and welcome Dr. Reddy.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone, and it's nice to be here, and I apologize for not being here more often. I've had some conflicts in schedules. There's been a lot on the agenda, a lot going on, but as you know. But I did want to just share with you a couple of things, and I'm happy to answer any specific questions you have. But first, Mr. Chairman, with regard to the issue of the interviews at the council meeting last night, one of the things that I think will be helpful for this commission is, sometimes it's hard to get all 5 council members together, and there's several commissions, Measure J being one of them, where all the council members interview. But what they've agreed to do is just go forward with a quorum. So if we can't get all 5, as long as we have 3, they'll still conduct the hearings for Measure J. And so that will alleviate some of the scheduling issues. So we hope to have those interviews sooner than later. Okay, so they're being scheduled. That's one. What I really wanted to just bring you up to date on, and and I know as you're talking about future agenda items, there's large issues out there, and what's the role of Measure J in terms of dollars? And I know you've talked about several of these, and council's still in the process of making decisions of what and when and where in terms of some of these projects, and some are launched. So for example, obviously we've got the downtown park. The bids will be coming in. We hope to have that to council by, I think, the second meeting in July. We'll know what that cost is. And obviously that has implications for Measure J. The Plaza Theater, now, as you know, that's one of the last pieces of the puzzle for downtown. We're going down a road of private funding, and it's every intention that council has is that we're going to be able to raise a significant amount of that, and depending upon what the final project is, that obviously may be a discussion item. The fire station, as you know, is almost ready to come online, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later in terms of the marketing, but we certainly hope that you will join us. And I don't even know the exact date. It's in July, and if you may know when. July 23rd. So there's that there. And then there's some of these other things, like, so for example, the downtown maintenance. Now, remember the downtown maintenance that Measure J, what does that mean? When we put the downtown project together, we knew that if we're going to have the police station and the utilities and the maintenance and the security, all those things were planned to come out of the budget. So you have, obviously $500,000. We haven't spent a lot of those dollars over the last several years, but as the project is becoming finished and more finished with the park, obviously we're going to spend those dollars, and I suspect it's even going to be more than that going out a few years. So that will be obviously an issue. So that being said, as you can see, is all these good things that Measure J has done and what you're going to do in addition to the other items and programs you have. What I would like to suggest is, I believe, and I know you've had some discussion on the marketing of Measure J, marketing in the sense of all the good that you've done. I think it's been a long time since we've done this. So I'm going to put together, and I certainly, whether it's a subcommittee, Mr. Chairman, or however you want to do it, is a video, a really, really good video on sort of a retrospective now of where we've come with Measure J. Because, we got to start gearing up potentially for the renewal. and that's going to be important. And so whether it's getting you new signs, and I think you've already discussed that, the new Measure J signs that we need to put out, and within a sort of an aggressive program. So there's the signage, the marketing, the video, how we're going to start raising that up, highlighting that more at council, and other things we're doing throughout the city. So I guess what I'm here to say is I need to get more involved with you and get Amy and whatever resources we have. So we work together and take your direction on how we're going to sort of roll out a higher level of marketing and exposure for Measure J. And I think the fire station will be a good place to start that in June and July. And I want to have a separate plaque just for Measure J. Actually, I think we should do that at the ribbon cutting. So that being said, I would also just leave you with the idea that with regard to the library project, it's still unclear what we're doing there in terms of location and what. As you know, there's all kinds of things swirling from downtown to COD, and all those ideas are still cooking. And there's still councils going to be looking for a lot of input before we finalize. But the one thing I do want to let you know is checking with our bonding capacity, our bond council, we pretty much bonded everything we can in the city. But for the library, we could squeeze about $15 million worth of bonding back. So whatever that $15 million a year would cost in a debt payment, $3 million or so, I don't know. So if the library is, for example, the $30 million level, potentially we could bond for part of it, and maybe we're going to raise part of it. Maybe COD comes to the table with some of it. Maybe there's, who knows what the possibilities are. But that being said, I just want to let you know that that's a resource and a possibility that we do have some bonding capacity if Measure J wants to get involved in the library as well. So I know that's a lot there, and so as you move through time and your discussions, I think our role is to get you as much updated information as we can, but I really would like to get going with you on sort of the marketing aspect, and I think the video would be a good first step. So happy to answer questions.
Commissioner Craig.
I wanted to say just the 1 foot by 1 foot signage, which is in front of the police training center and station right now. In the last 6 weeks, I've had at least 2 people comment to me, "Oh, I didn't realize that's Measure J." So that's why what you're saying is very important.
Yeah, and that's the other one. When are we having a ribbon cutting on the police station, you think? We ought to highlight that one.
Yes, we do.
So December. So the fire station will be
yeah.
in advance. Yeah. Now, the date for the fire is still a little flexible, only because I want to make sure the building is going to be done, but we have all the inside done in furniture. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll keep you well posted if that date's still good.
Great. Yeah.
So I think the video is a great idea, but is that something that would come out of the $10,000 marketing budget that we got, or is there a separate?
Yeah, well, I think we probably want to do it at a higher quality, and probably $10,000. Yeah, I think you need to do more than $10,000 probably this year on your marketing campaign. And what I would suggest is that why don't you come up with a good aggressive campaign, and we put a price tag on it, and put the burden on me to figure out how to get it paid for. Probably some Measure J, and there's a couple other pots of money we can use. Okay?
Sure.
And we do have a communications subcommittee. Just a show of hands, who's on that committee again? Okay, all right. So we'll lose Bixen, but we have 3, so we'll probably add someone to that. But we do have, so they can meet as a subcommittee and meet with your team as well, with Amy down the road. And that's an agenda item today too, that we're gonna talk a little bit about that 10,000.
Okay.
We had talked, the communication thing had talked about a mailer that would go to every resident.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we should probably put that back on the table, because it's great to have a video, but how, where people see the video is always a question. But I've always been under the impression that if you actually mail something to everyone, now we have an election this year, so I wouldn't want it to get confused with the election, but certainly if it could come out in January and it went to every single household, irregardless if they're a voter or not, I think that would do a lot, because that's when our snowbirds would be here. So if we could work over the next 6, from September to December, getting that ready. And I think Amy already gave us figures on how much that would be.
And so, Mr. Gray, interesting, you raise that because I think there's an opportunity, in addition, we're ready to finalize a program with the chamber that the council is looking for. It'd be like, I don't know if any of you have anybody, friends who live in La Quinta, I know none of you do, but they do this community newsletter that goes out 4 times a year. It's actually pretty good to every household in the city. So we're going to do that. We're looking at probably 3 times a year. And it's probably going to be a 4 or 5 page sort of thing. And I think that's a good opportunity to dedicate a whole page of that to Measure J. So we could do that consistently, and that's going to be delivered to every household. So, basically that could be your page.
Do you still do your annual piece?
We're gonna probably be doing an annual piece, and the other thing is, now that the budget's done, this first community letter is probably going to be geared around the budget, so we want to do that sooner than later, and we'll
Thank you.
include that.
Commissioner Soto.
Yeah, and these all sound like great ideas, especially the communication piece that's come up time and time again. I would just encourage us to think about not just marketing, but engagement, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so kind of either getting some focus groups of how people get that information, or, and especially for some of these, substantial projects like the library and the Plaza Theater, just making sure that within our own processes and kind of moving forward, we're also keeping that in mind, how we're gathering that feedback. So, thank you.
Yeah, any suggestions would be, appreciated. If you have ideas.
I mean, I know the working group, the Voting Rights Act working group, that kind of helped establish a lot of the districts and kind of make recommendations. I know that was a huge lift and was a lot of people's effort. But that's such a good model in terms of community outreach meetings and doing things in multiple languages. And so even if we can just model like 1 or 2 or 3 things that were done throughout the course of that year in that working group, I think that could be good best practices to incorporate in. Maybe we just kind of reach out to the chair of that working group and saying, what was a small thing that was, really worth it, and maybe we can incorporate that in.
Okay. So great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank
So I'm going
you.
to hang out here for a little while before I go, if that's okay?
We would welcome that. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so we'll move on to the Finance Director's report. Nancy, welcome.
Thank you. Welcome. Ariana just passed out a revised schedule to you. And if you'll go to the page 1 of 2 here, we did increase, I modified this schedule here to include what the actual budget approved was for 19, 20, and 21, which is a 4% increase in the revenues, not 3%. Also for May, we are 586,000 over prior year. Attached to that, hopefully I came up with the list that is correct that we did. We were at the joint meeting of all the projects that were approved and the order that you wished them approved in. So if you want to review that quickly, and we could, in the future, when we do start on these projects, we could kind of make notes next to it. It's the extra handout that Ariana just handed to you.
This one, that's right.
It's
This
attached
one.
to the roadmap.
Gotcha.
It is correct.
And maybe we can use this attachment or schedule going forward and estimated start dates, or if it did start, when it started, and maybe keeping a little update on these.
That would be awesome.
Okay, and if you do have any changes, if you notice something that I may have missed or in the incorrect order, just let me know.
Yeah, that would be great to have, to
Okay.
just kind of keep referencing this so we stay fresh on this.
Do you have any questions at this time? Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the staff update. Joel?
So I'm afraid the city manager took a little bit of my thunder there. I had wanted to give a little bit of the updates, but one of the things that did happen last night at council is that it was recommended we actually spend another $4 million with our payment rehab project. We're getting ready. We had a list ready to do 4 million, using Measure J money. And last night, I think it was Councilmember Coors suggested that we go and do 2 years worth of projects in one. So we're going to look at that. We've created a new list, and I believe we're going to be able to do $8 million worth of reconstruction. So that's good. That's a good thing. Earlier we're talking a little bit about the police station. It is back on track. We're working. The new contractor is doing great work. There was an issue with some of the construction that was done with the previous contractor. That's actually all been demoed now. So we're working steadily towards a finish. They're supposed to finish around November 1st, so that's why I was hesitant when I was saying when the grand opening might be, but I think everything is pointing to the right direction, that we're going to be able to be complete before November, so hopefully we can have a grand opening in November, December. So with, let me see, the other one mentioned earlier was a downtown park. We are going to open those bids. It's set right now for July 8th, so in July 8th we should be able to get some numbers for that project.
So then, Joe, that would be at the second meet, July 24th.
Right.
For council approval.
Right, so we'll get the staff report ready and we'll be just ready to put the numbers of whatever that number is when it comes in. So let me see, what other one? The fire station number 4, actually, yeah. So we were talking earlier about the grand opening. The contractor's very close to being finished. There are some things that they're doing out there that just to finish it up, they're doing the landscaping outside. So we're very close to completing that project. The next project I want to talk about is the Indian two-way conversion, is well underway as well. We went and talked to Main Street and kind of gave a little report as to where we're at in the project, what we're doing. One of the interesting things or facts is that we have flyers that we send to all the businesses. We've put out a website, we put out a number, and we've gotten very little complaints so far. Keep our fingers crossed. We're about to start some of the heavier demos, so we might get a little bit more complaints, but we have contractors out there. We have our construction manager out there, so we're ready to answer any questions and help the businesses out. Yeah.
With regard to that, has there been any more discussion about this roundabout at the end of that? Is that still under discussion, or?
That was a project that was slated. I don't know, Mr. Fuller, right now we haven't moved it forward.
It's not funded, so we haven't really pursued it yet. It might be one of the projects you want to consider adding to the list.
That's the only accidents there are.
Right.
And Joel, simultaneously, we're also working on like crosswalks and downtown as well, like redoing all those, yeah.
Correct.
So
Those
that's
are also being
happening this
worked on.
summer into the
Right.
fall.
Correct.
Okay.
And the other project, it's not associated with Measure J, but the Vista Chino Genotry we've already opened up 2 left lanes, so we're almost getting ready to completely finish that project up. So, yeah, it was pretty fast.
Is the Indian Canyon still on schedule for what you thought?
Yes.
The poles and everything?
Yeah. So we have mentioned that the poles take about 40 weeks once you order it. So we had to delay the project. But for now, the poles have been ordered. The work is progressing, and we seem to be on track. I haven't heard any reason that we wouldn't be on track.
I have a question about the crosswalks on Palm Canyon. Does that include when you've been going through the city and doing the ADA compliant, whatever you want to call them, the ramp things that are at intersections, the ones that the crosswalks we're doing on Palm Canyon, will that include that portion of it, or is that something separate?
I'm trying to see if I can rephrase the question. So,
in other words, if you're going to redo I don't know where the projects are exactly on each intersection, but my husband's in a wheelchair, so we noticed that the intersection of Amado by the Hyatt is really, really bad. They're not in compliance. So does this project,
Yeah, so all those are part of this
Okay.
project. We are going to make it in compliance. And there is actually another project that we're doing right now, which is a curb ADA ramp project.
well, that's why I didn't know if. that
Right, those
helped.
are two different, but we are doing what happens when we do city projects, capital improvement projects, where we touch a street, we do resurfacing, we actually go and, as part of our ADA transition plan, we go and get all the ramps that are associated with that project, we bring them up to compliance. So,
And will that include the sidewalk in front of that hotel, which, was finished up to the new portion, but then from there on, it's got funny tiles and really bad stuff, and I didn't know if that's the hotel's problem, the city's issue, but the sidewalk in front of the Hyatt is totally uncompliant. It's just really bad.
In what way, David?
Well, there are tiles missing, so, and then when you come to the crossing of the entry of the thing, it does all these weird things that wouldn't be in compliance with today's, but especially on Amato, the four corners on Palm Canyon are really steep and they are not in compliant. And I just, we just sort of noticed it because you come off that really nice part that's been redone and then all of a sudden it's like you're back into something else. And I know that where the Andes project is, of course, all the sidewalks will be redone, so it's kind of like this sort of gappy part right there, and it has a lot of traffic because of, that's where the entrance is to the parking and all that, but from that parking part is all new, but then on the other side, which is not a very big portion, but the light poles and everything are kind of like in the sidewalk, and so you have to kind of do these funny little things, but it's pretty difficult to maneuver a motorized wheelchair on that particular four corners.
Well, yeah, so we deal with the curb ramps, but we don't have the sidewalk replacement or the driveway approach included in that upcoming project. But we can flag that and look at it, perhaps.
Yeah, I think it should be because if you're going to redo the corner, it's really maybe 20 feet. It's not a very long piece, and it seems to me that the old tiles, they don't match anything anymore, and I don't know if the Hyatt can give you some money, but it's not really their sidewalk. It's on the main street. Their sidewalk is fine. It's just that funny little part between the drive part is weird. So, it's just one of those things that I wouldn't have really noticed, but we've been there a couple of times, and it's like it's getting worse instead of better because things keep coming up.
I just wanted to circle back to the bullards that we help fund. And I know the issue with the vibration, and I've been downtown a lot lately, and I've noticed how bad that cobblestone brick drive, the pavers are there. And I'm like, wow, I can see why there's an issue. Do we have any kind of solution? I know you said that it sounds like it's gonna have to be a bigger solution of really putting like concrete around that. Will we have to maybe resurface that area completely to ultimately have successful bullards?
If we're sticking with the retractable, which I think at the end of the day we're not, because I'm not convinced that they're going to have a fix that will work, which is surprising because they're a huge company. But that was going to require, if they were proceeding to develop a redesign, that was going to have to rip it all out again. But I'm starting to talk with the manufacturer and with the maintenance department to figure out the logistics of having just the manual removable, which are, heavy and a problem for staff. And we're exploring that because I just don't want to be exposed to the risk of these bollards popping up again. And we do need to circle back to the contractor. And again, it wasn't his fault. It was a manufacturing defect in the bollard provided by the manufacturer. So, but those pavers have settled and we haven't accepted the project. So that's an item we have to revisit with the contractor, who's not really happy with us because we're still holding on to his retention after all this time, and it's just one of those things that we don't like to bore you with, but
No, and I get that, and I just, by looking at it visibly, I'm like, wow, I can see this is a bit of a mess. So, all right, thank you.
And I wanted to follow up on what Joel said about the paving. So the idea that council had was we're going to do the 2 years of paving this year, which means we won't do a paving project next year. And so we would be fronting the 4 million out of general fund balance and then repaying ourselves. And because it's a 2-year budget, it makes sense with the 3 million in next year's Measure J budget. And then, of course, the million that would have come from general fund anyway. So we just, hopefully we'll get a better economy of scale with a bigger project, which we should get some better pricing.
So we can expect all that kind of starting in the fall and running into next summer? Okay, great. And anything as far as those poles, maybe this would help Commissioner Bixson accept the two-way. Any great design element to the new stoplights or anything? That new technology, something very slick looking for Indian
I
Canyon?
guess the only real advancement, I guess, if you will, is the all-way crossing at the intersections.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
other than that, they're pretty boring old Caltrans.
Okay,
poles.
well, all right, that was, yeah, exactly, had hope. All right, any other questions for staff? Yeah,
A question-
Commissioner Robin.
A question, Joel, back on the bollards, or maybe for Marcus. I think it was the last meeting, one of you had commented that the dispute between contractor, manufacturer, and city, I had the impression that even if there's a solution here, the cost is sunk. So whatever has been spent, and wondering if there's any additional information on whether that still holds. In other words, if you get the execution that you'd hope for, it sounds like you don't think we're there. If you got the execution on the project you expected, is that good funds spent, or is it we've just learned that the standoff of contractor and manufacturer leaves us with a project that needs to be redone with future funds?
So I was pleased to see in writing in an email from the manufacturer, from Calpipe, that they were going to pay the full cost, even if it was ripping out what was built and reinstalling the redesigned retractable. So yeah, what we paid the contractor, it wasn't his fault. We specified it. Calpipe got these bollards from China. There's 2 different manufacturers in the US that buy that product. The manufacturer, Calpipe, we expected would be the manufacturer chosen by the contractor. They didn't share with us when we designed this with them that they were going to have an aftermarket fix that was going to help deal with this vibration. And the contractor was allowed to propose an alternate equal, which, because it comes from the same place, we said, sure, as long as it meets all the standards. But Calpipe hadn't shared with our design engineer, oh, by the way, we're going to do this aftermarket fix in our shop and then give them to you, and so that's why they've owned it. They know that they didn't share that with us. And so, again, I'm just trying to make sure that I just don't want to go through this again and have them pop up. So at the end of the day, if the logistics don't work with having the manually removable ones, then we will pursue and have, the retractable redesigned, installed, and hope that they work. Otherwise, they'll just come back and redo them again.
Good outcome, better outcome. Thank you.
At the May 16th meeting, when we found out we had extra funds and we were looking at unfunded projects that we might consider, there was a number of them that we found out that either weren't necessary or had been moved to the general fund or had already been completed. So I guess for September, do we start with like a fully vetted, clean list? And is there anything on there that would have moved to the general fund or not be necessary anymore?
So in September, you will begin with a new list. We're going to start doing outreach with all the departments just to try to come up with new projects and give you the opportunity, the commission opportunity to start looking at all these projects.
And also, do they see what's on there already? Because I know we talked to some of the people just casually in other departments who said, well, we may have a different priority at this point, but they didn't realize what was still on the list.
So yes, part of our outreach is to reach out to the other departments, show them what the other older projects were, see if they're still valid, viable, and important to the department. Work with them to vet new projects out, and if the old ones are still good, looking for what the description, scope of work would be, if it's still the same or if it's changed. So yeah, we're going to do our outreach to try to come up with a good list with a new list going forward.
Yes, Commissioner Soto.
I had a question around two of the projects, or two of the priorities that are kind of long-term things, like the library and the Plaza Theater. And I was wondering if by the time we come back in September, for either of those projects, is there some type of like significant milestone or decision, or is there any type of progress that we should anticipate kind of been worked on by the time we come back together in the summer for those two projects that seem kind of the most fluid and undefined right now?
Well, I would say nothing probably concrete that's actionable, just because let's take the library, for example. It's still in a lot of discussion stage of what and where. Well, the what is probably more defined, David, you know this better than I do, than the where.
Well, yeah, I mean, we reallocated money so that they could do their feasibility study, and it's my understanding, although their board meeting is next week, but it's my understanding that the first thing that they will be doing is to do an RFP to hire a firm to do that, which would include community meetings and so forth. Concurrently with that, they would be also putting together a building committee, which would, along with the board and the council, make decisions. But I would say we are probably a year out before we would have a final decision as to what that's going to be.
That's probably a fair assessment. A couple things that give you some good context in this is, last night at council, the discussion on the 1090 clawback. One of the things that Grit Development had proposed was the location for the library. If that's going to be resolved, the council is going to try and do it by the end of July. That will force a little bit more discussion on the library, on that location. They may choose not to do that location too. And then that's going to sort of force the other location decision. The other thing in our favor is you see the mall now is being demolished. COD now is very seriously getting involved in what's going to go there in that first phase. What that means is we have some meetings scheduled, so there could be some movement there. So maybe the longer answer to your question is we might be a little bit further down the road, September, October, November, on the library than we will be on the Plaza Theater, because they're still in the early stages of the fundraising.
I have a question about last night's meeting. I haven't seen it yet. Could you say a little bit about this clawback and some of the terms? I've just read about it in the Desert Sun.
Sure, obviously, because a lot of those dollars were Measure J dollars, so they could be coming back. But the bottom line to this is, if in the event that there is a conviction, the city would potentially be entitled to certain clawback of what happened under those contracts would be void. So what the discussion was last night was we figure that's approximately about a $12 to $13 million value. What Grit Development had proposed is close to a $30 million value. So the question for council is, do you want to continue this negotiation to actually have an agreement? So we would get that now instead of later. Now, the other thing is it's sort of a risk for both parties, because if there's no conviction, the city's not entitled to anything. By doing it now, the cloud over that project is lifted. You could go forward potentially with the Virgin and refinancing the Kimpton and whatever else needs to do to finish that project, where right now we can't do any of that. So this would resolve our claims and remove their cloud.
mention the specific things that they proposed that have to do with Measure J?
Well, you know, obviously, we used your 5 million to do the park. Those dollars would come back. They offered to put that into the value for the library. But obviously, if the library doesn't go there, potentially they could put that into value of the park or something else. So that was the main one. And of course, the other pieces would come back potentially as open space in crescendos and boulders up on the Chino Cone. But the actual dollars would be that 5 million potentially credited towards either the park or the library or some other value.
Great, thank you. Any others? All right. We will move on to new business, and I just wanted to add to the agenda today just a discussion. Obviously, we got unanimous approval from council for that $10,000 for marketing, which is great. And I thought, well, the discussion starts with us, and then we can reach out, or the subcommittee can, on communication, can go from there. But I just kind of wanted to start the discussion of what we see would be the best fit for that. Obviously, we've talked a bit about a mailer. We know, a few years ago, I know a mailer for citywide was probably around $8,000 to hit all residents. So that obviously would take a chunk of that. I believe we might have signage already in the works with what little bit of money we might have had. I'm not 100% sure. But okay, we know we wanted to get some of those large signs back. Just they.
Chairman, have you guys decided on a design? Do you want to do a new design?
I mean, I'm happy with what was there or what we've used in the past. We certainly could redesign it. They stood out. They were colorful. I don't think they were probably real expensive signs because one good windstorm or, a rogue sprinkler and they kind of fell apart. But I just think they were nice to see around town, around projects, especially paving projects or when they were doing the boulevards on Tockwitz. It's a visible reminder that this is being used, and it was big, as opposed to just maybe part of a larger sign that is talking about a project, and there's just a little Measure J in the corner. So, and I'm willing to open that up. So,
Yeah, I mean, if we could do the city newsletter and have a page in that would seem to save the 8,000. My recommendation would be, since we pretty much know what's going to happen, the year ahead, we know that some projects may be finished, others not. We want to do a video, a mailer. We're going to have various community outreach, that we just plan the whole year ahead of time. And then depending on when the projects are completed, we know we can put a plaque or whatever. And if there's 3 mailers, we can figure out whatever the deadline is, what would go in each mailer, and then when the video we want to introduce. But that way we're not, and if we're going to do the newsletter and we're going to have the signs, we're going to have a video, then presumably if we change any look and feel, it would happen across the board with everything. Otherwise we don't want to have existing signs with art and then a different looking video or a different looking newsletter, because that would be confusing.
Well, it seems that the Measure J logo is already designed, and there's no reason to change that. People already have it. It's a brand. So I would say the first thing is figure out how many big signs we need and how many small signs we need for streets or construction projects, and get those ordered. And I don't know, bring us back a budget of what that's going to cost. I have no clue. But if we needed, let's say we order, 25 big signs and, 50 smaller little signs that you put along the road, what does that cost? And they don't have to be, they can be just like the ones that we've already had, because that's what people are already thinking about. And when you're driving by a building or you're driving down the street, all you can really see is Measure J. You don't want a bunch of words because you can't read it anyway.
we have
I have a question for Dan. On the previous membership of the Communication Subcommittee, John Williams had done some research about plaques.
Mhm.
And he found some very expensive way of putting a 6-inch round brass plate in the sidewalk. But I think you found some, did you get some
Yeah,
information?
I did look into that, and Dr. Reddy, I was really happy to hear you talk about putting a plaque on some of these projects. And I think it's great to have signs while work is going on, to reinforce, it's all part of the marketing. But I think having something that's a little more long-lasting is also valuable. So plaques obviously work. I've identified the company that does all of the little discs for the federal government. So everything from the National Survey to NASA to everybody else. So you could have the City of Palm Springs, basically logo, whatever you want to call it, Measure J project in the year. And I can get costings on those. It's very, the number you order is very relevant. But they're,
Something you
it's
hand out?
embedded in a sidewalk or a wall.
Oh, okay.
Construction medallion?
Yeah, medallion's probably the better way to use it. There are also very inexpensive things that we can do. Like if you walk around, you'll see these imprints in the sidewalks that contractors used to use. We can get one of those where you can change the date on it for $169 each. And they're reusable. They're made of brass, and you just stamp them out. So, especially if we're doing projects like that, I mean, people walk around their neighborhoods and they see those things every day. Just as kind of a constant reminder of, how this project came to be, at least in part. So there are a lot of different ways that we can approach all that. But coming back to the budget, I think one of the things we might want to consider is just having the communications subcommittee meet with your office to come up with a proposal. And I think the video is a great idea. I very much agree with the idea of using the newsletter rather than a separate mailer.
For sure.
For two reasons. I mean, one's the savings of the cost, but two, people are more likely to look at a general newsletter that's got a bunch of different information in it rather than take the time to specifically meet a Measure J flyer. So I think there are a lot of great things we can do, and I know everybody on the committee would be more than happy to work on that.
Commissioner Craig.
I wanted to then suggest, can't we just have the subcommittee come back to us in September and give us an outline and give us a blueprint of doing it from soup to nuts? Because your idea with the plaques and that, I agree. I think it's also important. When I was on Parks and Recreation, we did an event over at Desert Highlands, and there was a plaque on the wall there for the year, and it lists the Parks and Recreation Commission. And everybody really liked seeing that. There were city officials there, there were people from the state, and it's meaningful, and it's always there. And when you're in the park and you're looking, you see things.
I'll just pass this around. I'll just pass this around. This is from the company who does this, and they have the contract with all of the U.S. agencies, so people can take a quick look at it. And I've got the stuff here, too, about the concrete implants, the company that does that. There are several companies that do it, but I was surprised at how inexpensive it is. And like I said, they're almost infinitely reusable. You just change the little plaque in there for the year, and, they would last for years and cost virtually nothing.
Yeah, if that subcommittee can meet over the summer, possibly, I don't know if September is too aggressive to come back with feedback, maybe October.
I have a request of staff, though, for our committee. Can you go back and identify Measure J projects that are physical buildings or things that we have given to? I mean, I certainly know the police station, I know Wellwood, I know a few in my head, but I wouldn't.
Architecture and design.
Architecture and design, but what places where a medallion could be placed? Obviously, we know the streets and the sidewalks, but things that were not streets or sidewalks that have already been completed. And if we go this route, which I like this route, then we'd be able to go back. It's not that many years, maybe 5 years of work, so we're not too bad. I know in the Wellwood, it does say Measure J gave money, but it's it's in a long plaque with a lot of other stuff. but that was because I was involved in that project, and that's what sort of happened. But I'm not necessarily sure that's in other places, so it may say that in A&D, I don't know, someplace, but.
I don't think so.
I have no idea. But anyhow, if we could just get a list like that to our committee, then we would have an idea in our heads, okay, well, we need 20 of these things already that have to go to projects that were already done that we weren't thinking about. And then we have, like another 25 coming up, and so we could order, so we have an idea of, do we need 100 of these? Do we need 50 of them? Do we need whatever?
And Jim, if I could.
Yeah.
I think that your question, your comment about the subcommittee being available on its own terms to get to the commission on the commission's terms, I would expect the summer gives us more than enough time to make identifiable recommendations, working with Ariana and the rest of the professionals.
Great. Yeah, I think that would be great. I love a lot of these ideas. I've actually seen those sidewalk stamps. There's one in my neighborhood. I don't know how that came about, but when I bike and I see that, it's just it's still in great shape, and it's been there for, I think, almost 10 years. So, that's I think a great economical way of highlighting, especially considering we've been doing so many sidewalks and street repairs tied to Measure J. So, yeah, I would definitely, and feel free to look at David's staff to help you as well. Her name just flew out of my head. Amy, who does it all as far as marketing. So she can be a great resource, and we can report back in September. Okay, anything else on that line item of new business? Okay. Next is our roadmap and our calendar for our upcoming year. And I just wanted to go over this, and mainly, I don't think a lot needs to change, but I just want to make sure that for this next fiscal year and for our meetings, that, and this has been conveyed to me by a lot of the new members of this commission, that we have enough time to look at unfunded capital projects that we present to council. We were lucky this year that we had a little extra time that we could have that squeeze in that extra meeting in May, which was really beneficial the week before our joint meeting with council, and I think we got a lot out of that. And unfortunately, a lot of these the new commissioners started very late in the process. And so what's great is that the bulk of our commission will be back in September. Hopefully, council will have done their interviews, and we'll have our two new members joining us in September. And I just feel that it's important that we have enough meetings to really discuss these capital projects and kind of get under the skin on them. We probably learned a few things even with this joint meeting. I know I did that. Marcus was on the hot seat, and council asked a lot of good questions. And, we can do that as well. And really pop open the hood and look under the engine and see what makes sense as far as all these projects, so that and I think that we ultimately, at the end of the day, we came up with a very comprehensive, good list, and obviously council agreed with that list and unanimously approved it. And I would love to kind of ride that wave and hopefully have that same success for next year as well. So I'll open it up for any discussion. We can look at this roadmap. Obviously, September, there's certain things that have to happen. October, we have the true up. September, hopefully we'll have some feedback for the communications. I'm looking at January, we have our Measure J audit. And then I was ideally looking at, and it's basically on here, and I guess I just want to make sure that I've got my eyes on target as well, that February is when we really start to do a deep dive on these unfunded capital projects. And that would give us February, March, and April. We're not sure yet on May how that would fall, but that we would have 3 meetings to really work with staff on these proposed. And as we know, that morphs even from staff. So we know that, 1 month the list might be a certain way, and then the next month there's something that's maybe been taken out or added. And again, it gives us plenty of time to scrutinize that list. So I'll open it up to the commission for any comments.
I
Yep.
hear you have welcome new commissioners in February 2020. Is there anyone else who's leaving?
That's
No, that, you know what,
That's just-
that should be taken off.
It's just a pickup from last year, yeah.
So strike that.
I marked it. Yeah.
Sid caught it too. So yeah, just strike that
Yeah.
or move it to September, hopefully.
Yeah, that's where, hopefully.
And the other thing is, the report back from staff is in October, not September? On these?
I'm sorry? That's a true up, is October,
Okay.
yeah, where they do the detail.
We'll also be voting in September whether we'll have a December meeting or not. I believe this past year, we did meet in December, if I recall.
Right, but earlier.
Yeah, we did. We moved the date up.
You probably won't make a decision until October,
Okay.
just because you'll have more information and stuff like that, where you are in the process.
Gotcha. All right. Any other comments, suggestions, changes? Move, add changes?
Oh, Mr. Chairman, I do have, I forgot one thing, if I could, a little off this topic, but I do need to go, and I did want to leave this with you. 3 Measure J commissions ago, it may have been, it was important that the Measure J Commission wanted to have and fund and continue to fund the dog bags at the trailheads. I don't know if any of you recall that. But I just wanted to let you know, technically we're in violation of the multi-species plan, where you're not allowed to have dogs on the trails. And so what we need to do is put up signs basically instructing people that they can't have dogs on the trails. Now, obviously, there's a bit of a mixed signals if we have the dog bags. So we will be removing them, but since you were funding them, I did want to let you know that.
Didn't those fall off, I thought? I thought that got,
There's still money in the budget for trails. We left it in when we looked at the unfunded capital projects that we had money left over. Trails, we left that in the budget. So, yeah, okay, fair enough.
and for new signage. Okay. Thank you for joining us. Okay, I might need a little help here from Commissioner Johnson. We have our election of officers. And I guess, do we open the floor for,
Yeah, we could just open the floor for nominations, and if everybody doesn't mind, I'll go first. I would like to nominate Chair Gazan to stay on as chair of the Measure J for 2019 and 2020. So if someone would like to second that? You got to say all those in favor.
okay. Well, all those in favor of myself remaining as chair for the next fiscal year, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you.
And you accept?
I do accept.
Excellent. I'm going to jump in. I want to make one other motion if I may. And that is for 2019 and 2020, I would recommend that the liaison for the subcommittee with the city council be the chair. If we wanted to bring on someone with them, with the chair, it's like an alternate or something like that, I think that would be great as well. But because the chair is the one that deals mostly with the city council, there's a comfort there, so it's the way we used to do it. Last year was a little different because I'm the old guy, so you picked me. But I think going forward, that whoever the chair is should be the first contact with the city council. Let's just,
Okay.
all right?
And I will accept that, and I will need some guidance from you on that role.
You have my
as
salary.
far as, okay, good. And do we need to nominate a vice chair for
We
the
do.
commission?
We do.
Okay. Well, I guess while I've got the mic, I will nominate Sid Craig to continue to be vice chair. Okay. All in favor of Commissioner Craig as vice chair, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right.
I guess that's accepted.
That is exception. Okay. Anything else on that? All right.
A general question.
Sure.
Something that came up. Thank you. I just want to get confirmation. So, moving forward next year, for all potential new projects, I just want to confirm that has to come from staff, or can that also come from the commission, or where are we at? I know there was like some conversation the past couple months.
Yeah, the decision that was made, it will stay the same as it always been, or it has been the last few years. And that is, other than community projects, it'll come from staff. Now, I do want to make clear on that, is somebody can come from the general audience and come and sit and talk with us, and staff can add it to their list. It's not like we're saying, okay, anybody else in the community, you're not invited, because that's not true. And it could stay in that funding versus the community project. But yes, community projects will be done by Measure J. Everything else comes from staff.
Commissioner Craig.
When Parks and Recreation years ago, we proposed to Measure J, and it was $300 and some thousand to do the first ADA compliance playground in the Sunrise Park. It was brought by Parks and Recreation. Measure J approved it through staff. I guess it was done that way. But the funds were delivered and the park was built. So it did come from outside in some respects, I mean.
Yeah.
And that could have been somebody from the public coming to a parks meeting, making a suggestion, and it could have all grown just from that.
Yeah, maybe one thing that might be helpful is on the website, just having like clear how to send feedback, whether it's inviting to their meeting, or if it's the agencies, or I would imagine as a new resident, that would be kind of hard to kind of understand. And maybe we can just have that clear.
I would also, if there is a newsletter or whatever, that's, one thing I just want to disagree with the Measure J signs and people recognize, and I do agree that a lot of us do, but there's a lot of people who either forgot what Measure J is,
Oh,
or
sure.
were not here then, or did not fully understand how it works on a year-to-year basis. So I think reinforcing, as you guys were saying last time, the message and getting the community to understand is important. I mean, we
But
know about it, but
right.
not everybody does.
But if you see a sign that says Measure J and you don't really know what it is, then you tend to sort of ask around and get information. But if there's nothing there, you're not going to ask. I think to answer your question, when Measure J first started, there were community meetings, and that's sort of how the community project sort of started. And maybe we don't have to decide that today, but maybe we want to have a liaison to PS1 that would go to their meetings, and that's where we could get more input from the community through the Neighborhoods Association. We really haven't done it that way, but there's no right or wrong way of doing any of this, and so I think that's a discussion we can have when we start talking about the projects that are going to come up and how do we want to get community input. Obviously, the two huge projects, the Plaza Theater and the library, are certainly going to have community input. So we will be getting that input. But for the smaller projects, there might be things that could come in a way, and maybe if we formalized it with a liaison that went to PS1 twice a year or something like that as a report to them. And I don't know, but that could be part of our communication strategy as well.
Yeah, I think definitely having kind of a designated person makes a lot of sense. And I think PS1 is one piece of that, but I think there's definitely a lot of other ways to supplement. A lot of people who are working or have children at home can't make a lot of those meetings, so it can be a barrier for some residents. And maybe it's just like every couple of years we do a survey, or there's just other ways, and just formalizing that space and that procedure might be helpful.
For the benefit of some of the new commissioners, we had, I don't know exactly how long ago, but we had projects, community projects for the parks and some of the buildings for shade, because everyone's part-time hobby in Palm Springs is looking for shade. And we did install at the Mizell, it's like a kite over one person's head, but I think it's important to think about, as we do, buildings and park areas, to look into having some shade. I don't know what happened to it. It was on our list and then...
Well, yeah, I gave Jim the original Parks and Rec proposal for all the shade. He has the PowerPoint.
Oh, okay,
So
great.
you'll have that in September. And I know Parks and Rec is working further on refining it. So I'm sure you'll be hearing from them, in the fall. And what they'll do is they'll come in and take turns, because they only have like 3 minutes. So they'll bring 10 of them. But it'll be all good. And that'll be one of the things that'll probably be a priority as far as the next community project. But that's, of course, your decision to make.
Well, maybe we could even think about a joint meeting with them, as we've done with some other committees.
Because
Some
Parks
other
is
commissions.
already approved as our next community project, I believe, right, from the last commission? After we cleaned
Yes.
up.
Yes.
So
And that-
I was actually going to suggest, because there's nothing wrong with you individually letting us know, well, hey, I've been thinking about this project as an idea. I mean, I don't think it's fair to just say staff. I know that's the process.
Right.
Because frankly, if you've heard the conversations, we don't spend enough on just traditional facility maintenance. And that's not really a sexy Measure J project. But I do want to say, we did get word from Lori Kibbe asking for wiring information, so that $2 million is going to be coming in that we expected. So I need you thinking about, for September, how we're going to spend that $2 million that's currently programmed this fiscal year for the Andes, which will be paid for by this other funding source. I was just chatting with Joelle because I want to bring, if not on the 10th, on July 24th, an item to authorize bidding of the sidewalk project, which, as I understand, will be using your current $1 million for community projects. For that, we did get a couple $100,000 from RCTC to do the Sunny Dunes sidewalk that was part of that project. So we won't be able to do all of them, or most of them. In any event, I just want to make sure you're not surprised if you see that and say, hey, well, that's not what we wanted, but I understood that's what you wanted, was finish the sidewalks, which means we have the $1 million July 1st for community projects, which I guess I'm hearing is for parks. We just don't know what.
Right.
And I can tell you, I've heard from residents the need for shade over the playground structures. But I don't know if that's what the Parks and Rec Commission is looking for in terms of a Measure J project. But that's a simple project that has a big benefit to the public. So and it's a relatively easy project to deliver, because believe me, with the list that you have, I mean, Joelle and Don are going to be very busy trying to ramp up and get consultants on board to do, the park restroom upgrades and ADA upgrades and all the other wonderful stuff that we have to work on. I mean, it's like $20 million worth of projects, which aren't going to happen in 1 year, but we got to ramp up and get that going. So,
All right, great, thank you. All right, moving on. Public comment. Again, no one here. Any staff member comments? I think we've tapped it out. Any commissioner member comments, items, or requests? Commissioner Craig, then Vixen.
I've been on, I think, since a year ago, February, and it's been, thank you, and it's been a learning at the same time. And I stepped off of 2 other commissions to be on this one, because I felt strongly about wanting to be involved in how money is spent. I want to thank the 2 of you, and Michael, you were a real teacher, and you were a real help, and I really appreciate that. And now I'm sitting here as like the second senior person here, and we're all new and we're all learning. But I really appreciate everybody's involvement, because I think this is an important organization. I feel I'm proud to be part of it. And I'm looking forward to the next year of us getting the word Measure J as a public term in this community and recycling everything we've done so people are aware of it. Because I felt good when I saw in the last 6 weeks 2 people, as I said, comment on the Measure J sign in front of the police station. They were glad to see that money was being used. So again, thank both of you.
I just wanted to say, and we'll be better at it with our upcoming paving project that will be in the fall, but unfortunately, for whatever reason, those signs get vandalized. Every time we put them out, for whatever reason, people steal them, kick them, throw them in the street. But we will order more. They're not very expensive. Best Signs whips them out quickly. But we may not have been as good, I think, in the last year or 2 with our paving projects getting those signs out. So we'll make an effort with the upcoming paving project.
I would like to thank the commissioners, and this has been very educational, and I think we do important work. And I will miss all of you, and it's been such a cordial commission. I really appreciate that. I'll come back and visit.
Good, we'll have someone in the audience. Thank you.
And I'll follow up on that. What I feel really great about is all the new members. You're great. You're going to be terrific. I'm leaving here feeling that this is in great hands. So thank you. Yeah.
Well, with your absence, my training wheels are off, so I'm going to be a little wobbly. Everyone be easy on me. Exactly. Anyway, yeah, thank you both, and I hope everyone has a great summer and it's productive and safe and healthy, and before we know it, it's going to be September and we're going to be back around this table and it's season all over again, and that's what we do here in Palm Springs. So staff, thank you very much. You guys have been extremely supportive. Ariana, you're amazing, and we appreciate all your hard work. And with that, I will take a motion to adjourn. Okay, all in favor of adjournment? Aye. Thank you.